So if this were real fiddle camp, I would ask all of you a lot of annoying questions like, what kind of a tune is this, and what key is it in, and try to be a real pain. But I can't really do that as well in this format. So I will just tell you that this is a jig in G major. This is called Mrs. Galvin's Jig, and it's a tune that I don't know where I learned it. But you can look it up online in various places. thesession.org, I'm sure all of you know about, is a huge resource. There's a really great website that fewer people know about called irishtune.info that can give you a lot of background on tunes. This sounds very ornate when you dress it up with a lot of ornaments and double stops and grace notes and what have you, but it's a pretty simple tune. So I'm going to play just the stripped down version one time to see what we're really going to learn. And then I'll teach it just the way we do at Fiddle Camp. I'll teach it phrase by phrase. So here's just the simplest version of the tune. So we're going to learn each part, the A part and the B part. We're going to learn phrase by phrase, just the way that we do at Maine Fiddle Camp, learning it by ear. If you found the sheet music on the web page, that's great. And if I may suggest, just for the purposes of this workshop, maybe put it aside and let your ear and your fingers do the work and do the best you can. Now, in real life, I would be able to sort of hear how the tune is coming in the group and how many people are starting to get it, and this format doesn't allow us to do that. But the good thing that this does allow us to do is you can always go back, because we are going to record this, and follow up on things that didn't totally make sense. So I will do a lot of repetition, and I will go in phrases. If you don't totally get it, don't panic, because you can just go back in time and get the parts that you missed. Here's the A part.
is the first phrase. So get ready to play this with me. So I'll play it once, and I'll play it again, and you can try it with me. That's the first little bit. Let's try that together. I'm going to add the second piece of that phrase. So, and I'm doing that by rocking my third finger across to my D from my G. Here's both those pieces put together. You can see I'm leaving my third finger planted on my G on the D string. That's really helpful. If that's not quite where you're at yet, don't be afraid to pick it up and do what you need to do, but just remember that you can save some effort by doing that. Here's the phrase again. We'll do it one more time. Here's the second phrase. Just two little triplets, starting on your A and using your first finger. Let's try that together one more time. Okay, the next piece sounds trickier than it is. It's actually just a little G arpeggio. It starts from your third finger on the D string. Here that is again. So that whole phrase sounds like this. Here it is one more time. All right, so I'm going to put together both of the phrases that we know so far. Let's do that again. Ready, and. I'm going to go on, but I'm actually going to just teach you the first phrase again, because that's what happens next. This is one of those tunes that uses a sort of a modified call and response pattern, and we can think of this first phrase as the call. It gets a different response every time. Here it is again. Let's try that together one more time. Ready, and. Okay. Next we have something pretty familiar. We remember that. Let's try that together. Okay, and then the very last bit of the A part, it just resolves itself. I'm going to add the little bit before it, so here it is. Let's try that together. Ready, and. I'm going to play the whole A part one time through, and then I'm going to ask you to play it with me a few times. You may not have it all right just yet. Don't worry, I will break it up again. Just do the best you can. So listen once and then play it with me a few times. Let's try it together. Ready, and... Again. Couple more times. Before we go on, I'm going to just run back through each of the phrases that we learned, and that'll help just put them into sequence. So I'll play a phrase, and then you can play it back to me, although I'll just play it again because I can't hear you, but it's okay. So here is the first phrase. All together. Here is the second phrase. The third phrase. All together. And we'll try the last phrase. All together. I may have skipped one in there, or I may have skipped a repetition in there, and if I did, I apologize. It's a little hard to keep count of what's going on. But let's play this together a couple more times, and once we get through the A part, we can see if there are questions about anything. So let's do a couple more times through. So get ready, and... So I think that that should give you enough between that and listening back to the recording to get various pieces. And maybe what I'll do, just in the interest of time, is go on to the second part. We can circle back if there are questions afterwards. So I'm going to go ahead and play you the second part of the tune. Probably hear that this part has a lot of the same kinds of repetition that were in the first part, and there are two very important R words, words that start with the letter R when it comes to thinking about how tunes are set up: repetition and resolution. So if you hear it repeat and then you hear it resolve, pay attention to that, because that's a way that you can kind of, when you first hear a tune and you're kind of overwhelmed by it, that's a way to sort through it and figure out where you are in the tune. Here's the second part again, and then we'll learn it the same way. Here's the first phrase, starting on your G on the E string. Play that with me. One more time. Here's the next piece. So you can see that this starts down on my first finger on the A string. Try that with me. Let's try putting those two together. Try it with me. Here's the next bit. I have basically the same start, but I have a little pickup going into it. So play that with me with the little E and F sharp pickup. One more time. Then it does this. Starting on your B again. Here's that whole part. One more time. So here are both of those together, the first half of the B part. Let's try that together again. One more time. Just like in the A part, we go back and we do the first phrase again. So here it is. Try that with me. Now here's the end, the last phrase of the B part. I'm going to break that in half. Here that is again. Let's try it. One more time. Here's the second half. Try it with me. So here we are. All together, ready, and. Once more. Here's the whole B part. Looks like some of you are getting it. Let's try that together a few times and then we'll break it up again just to make sure. So nice and easy. We'll do it probably 4 times through. Ready, and. Again. Two more. Accidentally let a little fancy thing get into the last time through there. I'm sorry if that was confusing. Let's play just each part one more time so that we can really get it in there. So here is the first part, and then I'll play it and you can repeat it back to me. All together. Second part with the little pickup. All together. The third part. And then the big finish. All together. All right, let's try that B part 2 more times. Ready, and. So far, so good. I want to take your questions. Let's just play the whole tune together as best we can 2 more times. Just get all of those parts all stuck together. And if you have any questions about specific areas, I'll be happy to take them. So back to the very beginning of the tune. Here's a little preview of what it's going to start like. So let's try that all together. Ready, and. Second part. The beginning. B part. That's the whole tune. So I hope that that is working for most of you. I'll take questions now. I can't see all of you, so if you are able to sort of signal or put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. Is there anyone who, is there any part of that that we should go over more, or anything that isn't clear? I'm not seeing a lot of, nobody is flagging me down that I can see. Oh, Kate's iPad. can't hear Kate's iPad. Do you want to?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I'm sorry. I think we muted ourselves. Yeah, go ahead.
My question is if you can elaborate on the ornamentation and making it sound more Irish. You're probably headed in that direction anyway, but
yes, you've spoiled the surprise.
Sorry.
No, that's all right.
I'll go back to being muted.
Anybody else have questions about how the tune goes, or feel like there's something that we should like fix before we go? And so what I'll talk about next is bowing, and then we'll talk about sort of fun, sparkly things that we can put on the.
Alden, somebody in chat said, I would like to review the transition between A1 and A2.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you for pointing that out. So let's see, A1 and A2. So thanks for pointing that out. There's a lot of these little kind of connecting notes or pickup notes that I sort of try to take out when I teach the tune, just because it makes it a little easier to get the pieces. But you're absolutely right that there's an important one in there, and all that is between A1 and A2. Here's the end of A1. I hit an open A. I hope that is sensible.
You had us hear it. Can you say what you did there?
Yeah. So I end the first A part on a G. I'll play 1/8 note on the A string, and then back to the first B in the beginning of the second A part. So I hope that helps. Basically, with these tunes, you know, there's a little bit of a gray area. Somebody's got a little bit of a buzz going on here, so I'm just going to mute. There's a bit of a gray area sometimes between what actually is the tune, the official melody, and then what is like improvisational or like optional extras, and nobody really knows. And it's your tune, you do whatever you want with it. What I end up doing a lot of times with those grace notes and little passing notes, I just am doing sort of what makes kind of sense in the sequence. So we end on the G. And then I just go that passing note up to the next note, which is the B. There's another one in the B part, and I'll see if anybody picks up on it. Some of you will probably notice.
Alden, somebody in the chat wants to know if there's a slurring pattern that you prefer when you play this. A slurring pattern?
Yeah, there definitely is. Let's play it together again, and we'll just play it one more time together to keep it fresh in mind, and we'll talk about slurring right after that. So from the beginning, ready, and second part. So in this tune, this is big reason that I picked this tune to teach, because it is a great way to look at ways to make bowing easier. So there's something, the first phrase in this tune where you're rocking back and forth. There's a lot going on there, and to me, you know, anytime that I'm using this sort of third finger rocking back and forth, it's a high risk situation. There's a lot of room for, you know, strange sounds that I did not intend to happen, and so the biggest thing that I think, this is an Irish jig originally, and I think that one of the biggest things that separates the Irish style of fiddle playing is it really relies a lot on slurs, and in particular slurring between different strings. So when you're crossing from the D string to the A string, doing a slur can really smooth the sound out, and it also just makes your bowing easier to deal with. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to play the A part up to speed, and I'm going to play it with no slurs first. So with slurs, much easier to do. Here's what I'm doing. So let's play that. Let's just start by playing that phrase together one time. So ready, and. Now where I'm slurring is where we sort of have a crossing. So right there, I'm just going to, I start on that G on a down bow, and then I just rock it right over to get the D on the A string. Here it is again. You can practice this with no tune involved. It's a very annoying thing to do, but it's also pretty helpful. And you're going to notice that to get it to work right, just the way we have a little bit of extra pressure when we start any bow stroke, when you slur and you're trying to get that new string up and running, you're trying to get over to the A string and get it playing, it can help to give just a little bit of a pulse with your bow. Not a huge amount of pressure, but just a little extra blip, because you're trying to wake up this string that is not yet doing anything. Let's try that together again. Ready, and. I see I have a question.
Hi, it's Lee Haller. Hi, Alden.
Hi, Lee.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thank you. My question is it a slur on the down bow because you're going in that direction string-wise, and if you were going the other direction string-wise, you'd be slurring an up bow?
You have played right into my trap, which is that it's actually both. You should once you get kind of comfortable playing that on a down bow, then you should try going the other way. Mostly it happens on a down bow, and when I think about it, I can't get the up bow to work. lot of us are sort of coming out of the New England fiddle world. We are very down bow kinds of people. At least I, speaking for myself, I'm a real down bow person. And, you know, there are some very cool people out there who are really up bow centric, and I wish that I were more up bow centric. It's always harder for me to get the emphasis that I want on an up bow. I'm still trying, but so practice this on a down bow first. But the thing with slurs like this is that they are there to help you be ready for the unexpected. This is where you're kind of backed into a corner with your bow and something hasn't been going right, but you can just catch this note and then reset yourself, and it can be really helpful. So. See how if you watched my bow in that passage, you could see that it did happen sort of in either direction a few times. So you want to be ready for that as much as you can. So practice. And you know, there's a lot that you can do to, terrible as that little passage sounds, you know, there's so many different variables that go into how the fiddle is sounding. There's how much pressure you're putting on the bow, there's how much rosin you have, there's where, you know, in this dimension the bow is, you know, if it's sounding squeaky, maybe you're a little too close to the bridge. You can just kind of play with all of these different variables and sort of try to get that nice clean transition across. I hope that answers the question. Yeah, okay, good.
I'm understanding that you're saying you don't have to play every note with a new bow, but I'm not quite understanding the strategy of where and when you want to slur. Are you trying to start each bar on a downstroke? Are you trying to end the quarter notes being a down bow? Yet I saw you earlier playing those as up bows. I'm not really following the strategy of where and when to slur.
And that's a good question, because to me, what really matters with slurs is that they are not a pattern or a workflow. They're more of a feeling, and that's the tricky thing about what we're doing. So I generally am resistant to, and I'm resistant because I can't figure them out, defined bowing patterns. And you know, when I start trying to say, well, I've got to start down, down, up, up, down, 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 I can't keep track of it. So it's in this case starting on a down bow and just trying those slurs on a down bow is good, but in reality, when you play the tune, you don't want to adhere to a specific pattern, because strange things always happen and you're going to get thrown off, and if that's the pattern that you're depending on, then you're going to scramble to get back into it. So practice in many different directions, even if it isn't totally, even if some of them don't sound the best right away. Practice all these different permutations. Does that help?
A little. I mean, I know from my playing, there's certain tunes, certain passages of tunes, I know I want to start that passage on a down bow. Yeah. And I'll find myself slurring two notes on an up bow to make sure I start that on a down bow. But other than that, I'm not really sure when and where it makes sense.
And what I'm saying really is a critical place to be able to slur is crossing between strings. That's a skill to practice with this tune. Either direction, no particular pattern that I'm trying to teach you. So you should figure out what do you like and what works for you, starting up bow, starting down bow. Is there a pass? And that's a really great thing to notice about different tunes. You'll notice that, oh, okay, here's a place this really needs to have a down bow. And so what do I need to do just before that? Where are my chances to get things right in order for that to work? And let your subconscious take over, because your subconscious does a lot of this sort of mathematical figuring of how many ups and downs you need. If you can really focus on what you need to be a certain way, a lot of it will actually take care of itself if you practice enough. And that's why I kind of choose not to really say, all right, let's go down, up, up, down, down, down. You know, I try not to do that, because I think that.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Both the A and B parts are 4 bars and 4 bars in each part, and the first 2 or 3 bars repeat. After it, are you trying to play like the same notes, in the same direction? Like the first and second lines of the A part, are you trying to start them on the same up bow or same down bow, and the same with the B part? Or I'm not sure if I'm seeing you going in different directions, because one ends with a quarter note and the other ends with 8 notes at the end of that 4-bar phrase that leads into it.
Right. I have no plan. So that's not a great answer, I know, because it would be nice if I did. I would love to teach it, but I really have no plan. What I have is just, I'm accustomed to this feeling of being able to reach over and catch a string and get it going when I need it. And that's super helpful, and that's what I hope carries through from this. And I know, and I'll play the tune maybe up to speed at the end if so that it's in the recording, and you can really watch my what I do when I'm not thinking about it. But I do want to talk. We're sort of running low on time. Bowing is. We could just talk about bowing forever, and it's so fascinating. And bowing, the last thing I'll say is that it's really, it's a musical activity, but it's really related just as much to dance. If you thought about taking a dance class, would your dance instructor say, all right, now turn your feet at 45 degrees and stand up? Well, yeah, they would a little bit, but you would just watch and imitate. And so there's huge value in watching, and now we have YouTube, we can watch everything, every great fiddle player ever. Watch people's bows and find the music that really speaks to you, and watch how they use their bows. Don't be too analytical, but just see what that information that you're seeing, that visual information, does for your bowing. That's what in the past has made a big difference to the way that I play. I do want to talk a little bit. I promised some ornamentation stuff, and so I'm gonna turn back on ornaments in this tune and go to set it to the maximum bling setting and see what I do. take a very, very simple tune and adding, you know, a lot of kind of predefined ornaments that many of you know, like rolls or kind of hammer-on trills, you can really make it ridiculous, you know. I mean, that actually is too much. I wouldn't play that tune like that normally because it sort of takes away. You don't need ornaments to play a tune well. They're just like trees are beautiful. It's nice to have, you know, your Christmas tree or your wreath with some, you know, colored lights and lobster shells, but you don't have to have that to appreciate a tree. So that's a ridiculous. It's very hot in this room, if you were wondering. So my analogies are getting a little out of control. I do want to show a couple really simple things. Not all ornaments have to be super complicated in order to work. And this tune has some great places for some really simple things that you can do. You probably know about rolls, or most of you have probably heard about rolls. Rolls are wicked fun. The thing about them is you kind of have to do a little bit of renovation in the tune to get them in place. And in that sense, if they don't work out for whatever reason, the tune can kind of get a little bit messed up. But there are a lot of simpler, pretty easy ornaments. If you don't hit them, nobody's going to know. And if you get them, then they add a lot to the tune. So here's a really simple one. Here's the first phrase of the tune. Right in that first phrase where we have that pretty repetitive little pattern, I'm actually just doing a little extra note that sounds like this. And what I'm doing, I know my hands are a little bit washed out on the video here, so this may be a little hard to see. I'm just where I would be putting, when I put my first finger down, and then just quickly flicking my second finger above it. Not really playing that note to its full extent. I'm just sort of blipping it so that it adds a little texture. Try that with me a few times. And now here's the first phrase of the tune. So that's a really simple one. And I guess you would call that a grace note. It's there's not that much really to it, but you can throw those in anywhere where you have a note that's just long enough that you have time to flick the finger above it. It's also really good practice because these ornaments really rely on some muscle memory in your fingers. So getting used to that kind of a fast flick movement. Work in the second part too. When you get used to that movement, it'll help you with rolls and more complicated ornaments later on that are using a lot of fast motion. Play that little phrase with me really quick. Here it is again. So a lot of potential with just the simple grace note. There's one other one that I do want to show, which is a little bit more difficult. That's a trill. let's just focus on that first G. And what that is just a really fast bounce. If you practice doing this at home, if you're trying to annoy your dog or something, that is basically, we're just snipping out two little blips of that. So it's almost like your finger does a false start, it does a false landing, and then it lands for real. So it just adds sort of a little quivery sound to the note. So, and that's another one where if you don't quite land it right, people aren't really going to hear it the way they will if you have trouble with a roll or something. You'll be able to carry on with the tune. So those are two really simple ornaments that when you add them around, they can just add a lot of depth and richness to the tune. So I think we're up to 11:30, and I want to just close by having us play the tune together. I wish that we could all play this tune together. It would be so great. And in fact, there may be something special with Virtual Fiddle Camp that will allow us to do that. But for now, let's just play on our own, and I'll play 2 more times through the tune, and we can get it in our heads. So here we go from the beginning. Ready, and thanks everyone. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording, but I will happily stay on to answer questions, and I certainly hope to see all the rest of you at Virtual Fiddle Camp.